The organisms we chose for this presentation are the dogfish shark and the cacti. The dogfish shark is an aquatic predatory animal, and the cacti are photosynthetic plants found in hot, dry areas across the world. For the dogfish shark, it is from the domain Eukarya in the Animalia kingdom. More specifically, it is from the Chordata phylum, and it is in the class Chordithiacines. Its order is the Squaliformes and the family Squalidae. Its genus and species, or its scientific name, is Squalus acacia. The cacti is from the domain Eukaryote. It is from the Plantae kingdom and the Tracheophyte phylum. Its class is Magnophilida, and the order is Caryophyles. The family is Cactae, and its genus is Acaciaceae. It has many different species, up to 1,400. We will now talk about the methods and reproductive systems of the dogfish shark and the cactus. The male dogfish shark has organs called the internal testes, genitals, ducts, eugenitaria papilla or sinus, siphon sacs, and claspers. The claspers are stout, grooved copulary organs on the inner side of the pelvic fins. The female shark has a cochlear opening between the pelvic fins and internal ovaries, which are paired. The eggs travel through the asterium to oviducts through the shell gland. Most eggs will develop in the uteri. All fertilization in the dogfish sharks is internal. Much of the courtship rituals of the dogfish shark is unknown. We know that the male will twist its body around the female, and that reproductions happen in the winter season offshore. After mating comes the oviparous development. This lasts 4 to 6 months. During this time, the membrane around the egg, which provides nutrients, will break down. After the membrane breaks down, the yolk sac provides nutrients to the fetus. It lasts the longest time, 17 to 19 months. Overall, the dogfish shark can have up to 24-month gestation period. This is thought to be the longest gestation period of any vertebrate. The female dogfish shark produces live young. They can have litters of about 2 to 11 pups. The pups are anywhere between 20 to 30 centimeters long, or about 8 to 12 inches. The female dogfish shark can reach maturity at 19 to 20 years old, while the male dogfish shark reaches maturity at 11 years old. Moving on to the reproduction of the cactus reproduces through the male and female parts of the flower. The male part produces pollen, which is captured by pollinators. The cacti produce brightly colored flowers in order to attract birds, bats, and insects, which are all pollinators. In the anatomy of the cactus, we see the flower, which performs the reproductive function, the skin, which prevents water evaporation and protects against insects, the stem stigmas, which help cactus store water. The ribs allow the cactus to expand without splitting when quickly absorbing water. The areola contains spines and barbed glochida, which protect the cactus. The root system quickly stores water and moves to the water storage tissue. The vascular tissue, which is dense, woody tissue that provides structure. The vascular bundle distributes water from the roots throughout the cactus. The pith stores and distributes nutrients. The water storage tissue, which are cells that expand and contract to hold and store water. And pollen combines with egg cells and other flowers to create seeds for reproduction. When the pollen reaches the female egg cell, a fruit is developed. The cacti fruit contains fertilized seeds, which are scattered away from the parent plant by nature. The survival rate of these new plants are very low, which is why cacti produce many seeds. Certain cacti have the ability to produce asexually and desexually. This means they have the ability to produce without flowers nor seeds. The prickly pear cactus have the weak connecting joints along their stem. When a stem is knocked off and connects with the ground, roots are able to form. This will produce a new plant, which is able to develop its own flower and seeds. The similarities between the reproductive processes of these organisms are that in order for reproduction to take place, typically an egg cell has to be fertilized. These processes are called fertilization in sharks and pollination in cacti. There are a few scenarios where cacti can produce asexually, however. This can happen in certain cacti if a portion of their stem falls off due to conditions like weight or wind and falls to the ground, where the portion of the cacti then grows and develops into a new plant. This is often referred to as a type of procreation. Both of these organisms have adapted to be able to successfully reproduce in unique but quite opposite environments. One has adapted to successfully give birth underwater, and the other in hot, dry desert environments where most organisms cannot typically survive. The differences between the reproductive processes of these organisms are that the dogfish shark can reproduce sexually, while the cacti can reproduce asexually or sexually. Sexual reproduction involves combining DNA from two parent individuals, a male and a female, to form a fertilized gamete or sex cell in the female individual. Asexual reproduction, however, does not involve the exchange of DNA or two parent individuals. And in asexual reproduction, a single organism creates an exact genetic replica of itself. Dogfish sharks also experience embryonic development where they are living inside their mothers in order to grow and be born and be able to survive. Pollinated cacti produce fruit or flower that have the seeds inside them but have the goal of reproduction. Dogfish sharks are most similar to K-selected organisms because they have few live young that typically survive to live in their pack to hunt in nature. Cacti are R-selected species that have a lot of seeds, of which very few, if any, go on to become actual plants. Cacti also rely on pollinators such as bees, birds, bats, or even wind in order to reproduce, whereas the dogfish sharks do not need an intermediate species or an event to reproduce.
Continuing on to discuss the digestive processes and nutrition requirements, it's important to note that they will be very different because one organism, the dogfish shark, is a consumer, while the other, cacti, are producers. Consumers are organisms that get their energy by eating other organisms, while producers gather light energy from the sun and convert it into chemical energy. Dogfish sharks feed on other aquatic organisms, making them carnivores. Specifically, they occupy the trophic level of tertiary consumers. They can also be classified as heterotrophic organisms because they get their energy by consuming other organisms. They are incapable of making energy on their own. Some unique features of the dogfish sharks are that they are opportunistic feeders, meaning they will eat what they can when they can and are not very picky about time or type of prey. These animals also hunt in packs like dogs, and this helps them to round up prey so they can feed more safely and efficiently. This is an example of an oceanic food chain that you might expect to see a dogfish shark as a part of, as a tertiary consumer. From this, you can see that they are high on the list of predators, but are not at the top and can be preyed upon by larger organisms. As far as the nutrition sources for dogfish sharks, it really varies depending on their size. The larger of these sharks like to eat types of schooling fish, while the smaller ones like to eat squids and jellyfish. The main source of nutrients for them is crustaceans that they can easily prey upon and eat for quick energy. For the dogfish sharks, their digestive system is similar to those of other animals. They intake food through their mouth, which moves through their system by peristalsis until it reaches the final destination of the cloaca or anus. Like humans, these sharks have both primary and accessory digestive organs. Primary organs are directly related to digestion and help, such as the stomach or intestines. Accessory organs are what help with digestion by providing outside resources, like the gallbladder or pancreas. The dogfish shark have a unique esophagus that is lined with papillae, which help the esophagus to keep sealed and watertight. This then connects to the shark's U-shaped stomach that has folds in it called rugae that run long ways through the entire stomach to increase the surface area to aid in digestion. Moving to the cactus plant, this organism is a primary producer, meaning it gets all of its nutrients through photosynthesis, fueled by the sun. This can also be described as the organism being autotrophic or getting its energy on its own without the need of another organism. Plants like these convert energy from the light of the sun to food they use for living and growing. What makes cacti unique is that they are a special type of plant called CAM plants that are able to thrive in extremely hot, dry conditions. The abbreviation CAM stands for crassulacean acid metabolism, which is related to the characteristic of these plants where they only accept carbon dioxide during the nighttime. This protects their stomata from the extreme temperatures they live in and preserves their limited supply of water since they live in dry environments. It can be compared to the plant holding their breath during the day and releasing it at night. The so to speak digestive system of the cactus is all related to its ability to perform photosynthesis effectively. Cacti have a really shallow system of roots which allow them to quickly take in any water that may be in the soil around them. Then they use this water to perform photosynthesis with the carbon dioxide they harvest during the night and hold during the day. This creates the important product of glucose to fuel the organism and the beneficial byproduct of oxygen gas. They hold in this carbon dioxide by keeping their stomata closed and not allowing gas exchange to occur, which can endanger the plant to drying out due to high temperatures. While the differences are the most obvious to point out, let's begin with the similarities between the digestive systems of these organisms. Both have extremely complex systems that allow them to create the type of energy that is best for them. While the sources are different, the unique digestive systems have both adapted in a way that allows the organisms to gather as much nutrients as possible. As a result of this, both species have been successful in surviving to reproduce and continue growing their population. Now, the differences between these two are quite vast. The cactus is a primary producer, which, as mentioned earlier, means it gets all of its energy in the form of light from the sun. This is then converted through CAM photosynthesis into glucose, which nourishes the organism. The cacti is also classified as an autotroph because it relies on itself and its processes to make energy. This contrasts with the digestive system of the shark, which is a consumer and gets its energy by eating other organisms. This also classifies the shark as a heterotroph because it gets all of its energy from organisms besides itself.
Hey, what's up, guys? Now we're going to talk about respiration, which is like breathing, So we're going to start out with the dogfish shark. The dogfish shark has evolved sufficient structures to minimize the energy consumption that it takes to breathe because, they move a lot. And these structures are the primary and secondary lamella to maximize the oxygen absorption too. And so how it absorbs oxygen is it opens its little spiracle, which is right next to the eye, and that releases the pressure built up inside the dogfish shark. And then the internal and external gills, which you can see the gill slits on the outside, and we get a good view of the inside too. It has gill arches, the internal spiracle, which is where it leads to the outside, the internal gill slits, and the gill pouch. That's where the water moves through and the oxygen is absorbed. Now, the most effective way that it undergoes gas exchange and respiration is through countercurrent flow, which countercurrent flow means that the water is moving in one direction, and this is oxygen-rich water. And it goes into the mouth and out through the gill slits while it goes through the filaments and the gill arches and the gill rakers. So yeah, and it uses this specific high oxygen water so it could absorb much oxygen as possible because it needs it to breathe. Now the cactus, this has also evolved certain structures where they have little pores called stomata. And these stomata are really interesting because they're like little tiny holes in the plants that open so the plant can breathe, so it could like take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen. They only do this at nighttime. The stomata only open at nighttime so it could retain moisture during the day. And because it's in the dry climate with a lot of heat, so it likes to keep in as much moisture as possible and only takes in carbon dioxide at night. Now, they do produce oxygen when they undergo photosynthesis and respiration. It does not absorb any sugars because it's very complex for the cactus to take in. And again, carbon dioxide only absorbed at night while it takes in everything else during the day. So photosynthesis versus respiration. Photosynthesis, they do the produce oxygen thing, and this time the food is oxidized, like their sunlight, their water, it's all oxidized for them too in their bodies. So comparing and contrasting, so the dogfish shark and the cactus have both evolved for efficiency for their specific climate, like how the shark has the lamella and the cactus has stomata. they're also both kind of dangerous. I just wanted to throw that in there. So the differences is that the shark absorbs water and takes the oxygen from the water, while the cactus produces oxygen. It takes in carbon dioxide and produces oxygen. And they are dry. Cactus are dry, and dogfish sharks are wet. And the kinds of respiration that they do, again, oxygen, carbon dioxide, they produce oxygen, they absorb oxygen. So yeah.